Death is quiet. Even any pain the moment before is gone. Wednesday, October 3rd, 2024. Costello woke up in northern Massachusetts with a focus to which he was unfamiliar. He was visualizing the 16 hours in front of him, and it was as though he'd picked up his velocity and was experiencing time dilation. It looked like Maine was a block away. Today he would travel to Keene, New Hampshire, and then finish up the day in Manchester, where he grew up. Still no word from Avery on her PCR test or Candace on when they would arrive in Maine. Costello stopped and took a breath. He paused, packing up for the day, and sat down. The thought of sending himself off through his home state in a rush, without a quick chat with the two people, the only people who were at all invested in this tour, seemed spurious. 17 states, 4 weeks, an enlightenment he never expected weighed heavily on Costello. By no means did he feel as though his accomplishment would seem gilded if he didn't straighten himself up and adorn the closing to the tour in all the right ways. He just knew he would personally dwell on it for quite some time post-tour if he let the melt wash him across the finish line. Besides, he's been far too comfortable reclusing, and part of this journey was a mission to shelve that behavior and turn the page. He called Candace first. She was back home in Ojai getting the piano tuned and cleaned for his return. She hasn't spoken with Avery in days, so she had no new information regarding the PCR test. Candace's first rapid test was negative, so she was all set to take another pre-flight. Costello finally learned her arrival time. She was flying in Friday into Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. Costello's uncle and grandmother were still living in Manchester after all these years, and Candace would be visiting through Saturday, then renting a car to meet Costello in Portland, Maine the day after he arrives. She told him she figured he would need one night alone to wind down. Even after years of silence between the two, she knew he was an Eldridge to the bone. Nothing personal, she said. Simply respecting your work ethic and triumph. Costello tipped his cap in silence, and Candace asked if he was okay. He told her he was fine, and that she couldn't be more perfect. Candace said she was running behind on the piano and bid him a fine farewell. She certainly didn't let him go without reminding him to hang up and immediately call Avery. He agreed and closed his call with an, "I love you, Mom." Candace was taken aback. This was out-of-pocket behavior for him. However, she took it and cherished it with joy. They ended their call. Costello had that moment where he realized he was nothing without her. Their conversation gave him the inspiration to call Avery immediately. His first call went to voicemail, so he hung up and started texting. His preferred method anyhow. As he was texting, a text bubble popped up and went away, then came up again. She was engaging in a conversational game of chicken. Costello saw it best to feel it out. Her hellos were always so intoxicating. He wanted to see her text first, so he stared at what he had typed and held off on pressing send. He typed, "I can't believe I'm about to take off on the first leg of New Hampshire. I'm sorry I've been so quiet. None of this would have been possible without you. I wanted you to know that." Costello was met with the news he was trying not to manifest. Avery's intoxication sadly took the day off. She didn't waste any time. The PCR test came back positive and her ticket was rain-checked. Costello deleted what he'd typed and asked if he could call her, rather than engage in text conversation. She made the call. "How are you feeling?" She tried to open with a distraction. "Please don't try and tuck this news away," Costello said with a playful tone. "Trust me, I was looking forward to nothing more than seeing you in 2 days. I'm excited to see my mom, but I'd much rather celebrate this with you in Maine. I don't know. It feels like something stronger has been keeping us apart. Now I can't help but think I'm just not supposed to be there." Avery sighed. "I don't think I can see you for a few days when you get home." "What? Don't even go there. Look, let's just stay positive and cross that bridge when I get home," Costello said. "Back to my first question. How are you feeling?" Avery doubled back. "Strength and breathing have been good, actually. Head's been outstanding thanks to you. I'm struggling with everything else, though. I've never been so unsettled by our collective selves. I finally got to see so many different personalities and cultures in such a short period of time. It feels like the powers that be who should be keeping the fabric together are doing everything they can to tear us apart. The sad thing is so many people are just simply good people who are led astray. I'm not saying my way is the right way, but I feel like I can see when there's a wrong way. How come they want people to believe they're doing what's best for society when in turn they're becoming analogous to a belief system that deeply divides us? Costello blunderingly rambled on. Avery politely acknowledged Costello's long wind and circled back to her concern about this unknown power keeping them apart. She brought a sense of peace to something she felt she couldn't control. It worried Costello. Even though he was still potentially headed to prison for Tal and Spencer's murders, there was enough light still lit inside of him to hope for more time with Avery. Much more time. Jenna will always be the first person to show Costello how to be vulnerable and truly understand why we do things for others rather than only for ourselves. She didn't know she would end up in a coma after committing herself to Costello's interests. Who knows if she would have changed her path having known the risk existed? It didn't matter to Costello. He will always hold her close to his heart. Avery lights up Costello for different reasons, and she deserves to be appreciated and know how much he cares for her. Costello dug deep and threw strikes with every word he uttered. Without confirmation, he felt as though Avery was feeling better and putting the bad news behind them. She buoyed their situation and said every right word Costello needed to be sent off with the inspiration and drive it would take to finish the tour. They agreed to let Costello pedal free without cause for phone stops. She let him know the GPS team was good for 3 more days, and based on his schedule, he was on pace to finish right where he hoped. Costello told her his supplies were stocked and his medicine was fully plugged to get him through the week. A lengthy pause and then 2 I love yous from them. Costello felt his reservoirs fill up with energy and joy. He was ready to fulfill 2 childhood dreams. The only dark cloud out there was the reminder he would be divulging something to detectives that could strip away every ounce of happiness he was currently experiencing. After seemingly wanting to tattle on himself, his recent experiences and encounters showed him how much he never knew he hadn't finished in his life. Going to prison saddled him high above his newfound conviction towards amalgamation. Costello was having one of his days where the brain is stuck on a loop. The plant medicine had been working wonders calming this down, but today it was back. Most likely due to the proximity of Maine. Even though the tour was going astonishingly well, he couldn't help but find a reason to dwell on something. Avery's news didn't help, but he woke up with a toast on repeat in his head. Sometimes it was just someone's name over and over. Many times, names of people he's never heard of. It was like his mind was cultivating a society in his head. Well, today it was one of his toasts, and he didn't need to Sharpie it on anything because by 11 a.m., he'd heard himself say it 100 times. Here's to smoldering Bibles, capital letters, and punishment for everyone who reads from a script in the face of evil. If this was the last toast he utters before this tour is over, he swore to tattoo this one to his body. He'd heard so many of these toasts over time. This one just resonated with him. It could very well be a credo. It strangely made his first stop in New Hampshire come even faster. These toasts clearly had more meaning than he'd ever realized, and this one ensured he would analyze each of them when he's back in Los Angeles, because this one acted like fuel for him as he was barreling along his home state. 4 hours later, he was nearly halfway across New Hampshire. Little did he know how much this part of the journey would rekindle his memories of Jenna. In fact, he'd waited long enough. After all these years, he had kept the handwritten notes Jenna wrote while planning their trip to the East Coast. He's never looked at them. But when he found them in the kitchen drawer, he packed them along with him, and he wanted to see where she planned on taking him to subsidize the cycling tour she wouldn't have allowed him to take. When he rode into Keene, he found a nice spot to eat and searched for the keepsakes she left behind.